When Shedeur Sanders took the field for Cleveland, expectations were cautious. But now, with the Jets dangling a $200 million check, those expectations have exploded into national debate. Inside league circles, executives whisper about value inflation and desperate franchises overpaying to fix systemic dysfunction. For the Browns, the situation cuts both ways. They've seen Sanders' flashes of brilliance under pressure, but also the harsh reality of a 1-5 start. The question isn't whether he's talented. It's whether Cleveland can afford to wait for that talent to mature before his value crashes back to earth.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
That decision now defines everything. Do the Browns gamble on long-term growth amid mounting external pressure, or strike while demand peaks? Sanders' trajectory, his resilience, his raw competitiveness, has become the centerpiece of a bigger power play. The franchise must decide whether to trust its process or trade away its future for short-term peace. Either path carries consequences that stretch far beyond this season. The Browns are on fire, and not in the good way. A 1-5 start, a locker room full of tension, and now this. The New York Jets have just tossed a $200 million grenade into the middle of Cleveland's long-term plans. They want Shedeur Sanders. Badly. So badly, they're reportedly ready to blow up the entire quarterback market just to get him. And suddenly, Cleveland finds itself at the center of the most heated quarterback debate in the league. Because here's what's really happening. Shedeur Sanders' trade value has never been higher. The hype, the mystery, the potential, it's all peaking right now. He hasn't been overexposed. He hasn't had a string of bad games. And the team around him has been such a mess that there's still a convenient excuse for anything that doesn't look perfect. It's the sweet spot, that rare, delicate window where a player's value is inflated purely on potential and desperation from other teams. And the Jets are leading that desperation parade. Their quarterback room is in total disarray. Their leadership is shaky. And they're operating like a franchise on the edge. They need a spark, a face, a storyline. And they think Shedeur Sanders is that guy. That's why they're willing to throw $200 million his way. But here's the thing. That kind of offer doesn't just come out of nowhere. It only exists because the Browns have something the Jets want more than anything right now. Hope. And when you're 1-5 with a roster that's underperforming, that kind of leverage is rare. So, what do you do with it? That's what's tearing the Browns apart right now. Internally, the front office is split. Some want to take the deal, get a high draft pick, maybe even a second-rounder or better, free up resources, and move on. Others see Shedeur as a long-term investment, someone to build around for the next 5 to 10 years. On one side, cash in on peak value and try to salvage the season with short-term assets. On the other, bet everything on potential and ride to the storm hoping it pays off down the line. And this isn't just about football mechanics. This is about survival. Because the Browns' coaching staff, they're not exactly sitting pretty. They're on borrowed time. A 1-5 record doesn't buy much goodwill in this league. If they trade away a high-profile QB prospect and the team still tanks, it's over. If they keep Sanders and he doesn't develop fast enough, still over. That's the level of pressure we're talking about here. And this is where the timing becomes lethal. If Sanders starts games this season in Cleveland and struggles, even a little, his trade value goes straight down. Not just a dip, a drop. Right now, he's viewed through the lens of potential. Once he's out there on the field with his struggling roster around him, it gets real, fast, which means the Browns are staring down a ticking clock. Either move him now while his image is pristine, or hold on and hope he survives a messy development environment. And let's not ignore where the Jets factor in here. This isn't just a team in need of a quarterback. This is a team in chaos. Dysfunctional front office. Questionable coaching. Zero long-term stability. If Sanders goes there, he's walking into an environment that could derail even the most mentally tough players. Which is ironic, because one of the biggest reasons people believe in Sanders is that mental toughness. Colorado was a circus, and he handled it. The spotlight's been on him for years, and he stayed composed. He's improving in the NFL, Yes, but that calm under pressure is what's making the Browns think twice about letting him go. He's not a guaranteed star, but he's shown traits, resilience, focus, poise, that make him worth the wait. The Browns want to believe that if they just surround him with the right pieces, give him time, and develop him properly, he could become something special. Not just solid. Special. But can they afford to wait? That's the question that keeps coming up. Because the Browns aren't just playing a long game. They're also fighting the reality of a poor record, a tense locker room, and a city that's seen too many rebuilds go nowhere. There's a very real fear that holding on to Sanders, if it doesn't work, sets them back again. Another wasted window. Another failed quarterback experiment. Meanwhile, a second-round pick from a desperate team like the Jets? That's tangible. That's actionable. That's a piece you can flip or build around. It doesn't carry the same emotional weight as passing on a $200 million payday. But here's the risk. Trading Sanders now might mean trading away your one shot at a quarterback who can thrive despite chaos. And for a team like Cleveland, that kind of player is gold, because the Browns aren't just rebuilding. They're rebuilding in adversity. And they need a leader who doesn't flinch. A quarterback who doesn't need perfect conditions. Someone who can take hits, weather ugly losses, and still walk back into the huddle like he's playing for a Super Bowl. Shedeur might be that guy. Or he might not. That's the gamble. And the Browns know that once he's gone, especially to the Jets, they have no control over what happens next. If he thrives, it's a PR disaster. If he crumbles, they look smart, but they've still got a hole under center. No outcome is clean. This entire situation is about weighing potential against panic, stability versus upside, betting on development versus cashing in on desperation. And it doesn't help that the fan base is split, too. Some are begging the Browns to make the move. They see the offer. They see the record. They want results. They want picks. They want progress. Others are furious at the idea of selling the only young quarterback on the roster with any real juice. They've been through this before. New QBs, new schemes, new coaches, and they're tired. They want continuity. They want a reason to believe in something long-term. Both sides have a point. The Browns are essentially being asked to make a franchise-altering decision without a full picture. To either stick with a quarterback who hasn't been tested, or give him up and pray they don't regret it for the next decade. This isn't just a trade story. This is a kind of moment that franchises do not recover from if they get it wrong. If the Browns move Sanders and he turns into a star in New York, it's over. The narrative will haunt them for years. Every touchdown he throws, every highlight clip, every playoff appearance, it all becomes a reminder of what could have been. If they keep him and he fizzles, then they wasted the moment. They passed on a deal when his value was inflated, and they're back to square one with nothing to show for it. It's a lose-lose unless they get it exactly right. And that's the pressure cooker the Browns front office is in. No room for error. No margin for patience. And a deadline approaching fast. So where do you stand? Is this the time to trust the process, keep Sanders, and double down on a long-term vision? Or do you take the deal, secure assets, and roll the dice on another rebuild again? Let us know in the comments. Like if you're following every twist of this drama. Share this with someone who still thinks this is just business. And subscribe, because we'll be watching very closely to see which way this one goes. One way or another, something's about to break. The truth is, no matter which way this breaks, it's going to follow the Browns for a long time. If they take the Jets' offer, it signals something way bigger than a trade. It tells the league that Cleveland doesn't trust its own system, that they still don't see themselves as a team that develops greatness. They just flip it for whatever value they can get before things fall apart. It's the kind of move that says we're still operating in fear of our own past. And that past, it's brutal. Quarterback after quarterback. Hype then heartbreak. The Browns have been here before. Names like Johnny Manziel, Deshaun Kaiser, Brandon Whedon, all walked with potential and all got swallowed up in the dysfunction. But Shedeur, he might be different. That's what's so infuriating for Browns fans. Because for once, it feels like they might actually have a guy who can handle the madness, the media noise, the fan pressure, the organizational inconsistency. and that's rare. So if they let him go now, before he's even started a full stretch of NFL games, what does that say about where the Browns are as a franchise? Do they believe they can build around talent? Or are they still stuck in survival mode, looking for short-term ways to stay afloat? Meanwhile, on the Jet side of things, this whole story exposes just how far they veered into desperation. A $200 million offer for a rookie quarterback with no long-term NFL tape? That's not strategy. That's gambling. That's an entire front office saying, we don't have a plan. So we're throwing money at the first sign of potential, which is wild because they know the risks. Shedeur Sanders is still improving at the NFL level. He's got upside, but he hasn't played enough to show what that looks like against elite defenses. And yet, here come the Jets, rolling up with their checkbook wide open, like they're buying a lifeline instead of a player. That alone should be a red flag for Cleveland, because if New York is as desperate to get him, what does that say about what they think he could become? And are the Browns really going to give that up for a draft pick? That's the part that's hardest to wrap your head around. A second-round pick might sound nice in theory, but let's not pretend like it's a guaranteed success. Picks are lottery tickets. Shedeur Sanders is a real player with a name, a following, a ceiling. He's already shown he can operate under pressure. He already survived Colorado, which was a media circus week after week. He didn't just play. He carried that team through a storm. And now that he's in the NFL, people are acting like it's too soon to believe. Of course it's too soon. That's the point. You have to take chances like this before the league catches up. You have to take the shot before he either proves he's elite or proves he's not. That's what development is. You don't get to wait until the value is obvious. By then, it's too late. And Cleveland knows this. That's what makes this moment so tense. They're not being asked to decide between good and bad. They're choosing between safe and bold, between fear and faith. And yeah, there's risk in both directions. That's the whole point. But if they send Shedeur to the Jets, into a franchise famous for destroying young quarterbacks, they're not just moving a player. They're walking away from their best chance in years to prove they're not the same old Browns. Because let's say Shedeur goes to New York and does succeed. What then? He's on prime time. He's in every sports headline. He's the guy that got away. Every touchdown becomes a talking point. Every win is a reminder that the Browns couldn't see what the Jets did. You think fans will forget that? And don't think the media won't run with it either. Cleveland lets go a future star for second-round pick. That's the kind of story that hangs over a franchise like a storm cloud. It's not just about being wrong. It's about being wrong again. It's about setting back whatever little progress you've made and starting over with less. But here's the flip side. What if the Browns keep Shedeur and he flops? What if the offensive line doesn't hold? What if the receivers keep dropping passes? What if the coaching staff burns through another season and Sanders is left trying to carry a sinking team? That's the fear driving the trade talk. Because Shedeur's value right now is high. It might never be this high again. And if they wait too long, they might be stuck with a quarterback who's been damaged by the environment around him and no team willing to pay top dollar anymore. That's the gamble with patience. It's not just about waiting. It's about what can happen to a player while you wait. And that brings us back to the front office. They have a choice to make. Not between good and bad, but between a high-risk trade and a high-risk commitment. Do they trust themselves to develop talent? To build around a quarterback who's raw but promising? Or do they pull the plug and reset again? There's no easy answer. That's what makes this moment so defining. And the clock is ticking. The trade deadline isn't going to wait for the Browns to have a group therapy session about their identity. This decision has to come now, under pressure, under scrutiny, with the whole league watching. Because everyone sees what's happening here. A team that's always been one good quarterback away finally has something close. And they're thinking about flipping him before he even gets a chance. That's the part that doesn't sit right. And it's why this moment feels like more than just a football decision. It's about who the Browns want to be. Are they a team that takes the hard road to build something real? Or are they still stuck chasing Band-Aids for bullet holes? So let's bring it home. This isn't just about Shedeur Sanders. This is about the Browns choosing who they are. And yeah, the Jets might be offering the moon. But sometimes the smart move isn't the easiest one. Sometimes you hold on to your guy, not because it's guaranteed to work, but because you believe in what he could become. The offer's on the table. The pressure's mounting. And whatever happens next, it's going to define this franchise for years to come. At this point, the entire league is watching the Browns like it's reality TV. Front offices, media pundits, fans. It's all eyes on Cleveland. Not because they're winning. Not because they're a Super Bowl threat. But because they're standing at the edge of a cliff with a decision that could define their next decade. The offer from the Jets is more than just financial. It's a test of conviction. Do the Browns actually have the stomach to follow through on what they started with Shedeur Sanders? Or are they going to do what so many organizations have done before? Panic when the stakes get too high, sell off their future, and pray that the fallout doesn't turn into another embarrassing chapter? Because let's not forget the context. The Browns are 1-5. The locker room isn't exactly a picture of stability. And the coaching staff? They're coaching like they know every game could be their last. This isn't a nurturing environment. This isn't a smooth runway for a rookie quarterback to take flight. So if they're going to keep Sanders, they can't just hold on to him and hope. They need to commit fully. That means protecting him on the field. That means building a system around his strengths. That means not throwing him to the wolves just because the headlines say he should be starting. Otherwise, they might as well take the $200 million and walk away. Because there's nothing worse than keeping a player and ruining him through indecision and dysfunction. And we've seen it happen. Talented quarterbacks entering toxic environments and coming out looking like busts. Not because they couldn't play, but because the team didn't give them a chance. The Browns can't afford to be that team again. And neither can the Jets, honestly. Their willingness to throw that kind of money at Shedeur Sanders is a neon sign that things are unraveling in New York. No plan, no direction, just swinging for the fences and hoping for a miracle. They're not trying to build something. They're trying to be saved. And it says everything that they think Shedeur could be the guy to do it. But if you're the Browns, that should be the biggest warning flag of all. If another franchise thinks your improving rookie is worth $200 million, maybe, just maybe, you hold on to him and see what they're seeing. Because if you don't and they're right, you become the story. Again, the Browns don't need another chapter in the what could have been saga. They've been that team long enough. The team that almost did it. The team that had talent, but never figured out how to use it. The team that developed quarterbacks the way restaurants change menus. Frequently, without warning, and usually in response to bad reviews. But with Shedeur, there's a window here. A real one. And yes, it's risky. There's no guarantee he's the answer. But you don't get guarantees in the NFL. You get moments. You get gut checks. And this is one of them. They can either bet on potential and build with patience, or they can sell him off and hope that whoever they draft next doesn't fall into the same pattern. And that's the part that should make every Browns fan nervous. Because if they do take the trade, they're not just trading Sanders. They're rebooting the whole experiment. Again, a new quarterback means a new system, a new timeline, another developmental arc, another set of excuses when things don't go as planned. And in the NFL, you only get so many of those before the clock runs out on your entire front office. So while the Jets are out here swinging a $200 million hammer, the Browns are stuck trying to figure out whether they're builders or sellers. Are they a franchise finally willing to see a plan through, or just another team trying to look smart in the short term? Because say what you want about Shedeur Sanders, he's got the intangibles, the leadership, the mental toughness, the factor that teams are always chasing. And while he hasn't proven anything at the NFL level yet, he has shown that he doesn't fold under pressure. Colorado was proof of that. And now, Cleveland could be the next test. But only if the Browns are willing to give him a real shot. If they're not, fine. Take the offer. Flip it into picks. Reboot. Again. But they better be ready to wear that decision for years to come. Because if Shedeur goes to New York and survives, thrives, even, it's going to make Cleveland look like they gave up too soon. Like they didn't know what they had. And no matter how you spin it, that's not a good look. So this is it. This is the inflection point. The trade deadline is creeping closer. The front office is burning through hours of film, internal debates, and calls from agents. The media is fanning the flames. The fan base is eating itself alive in forums and phone-ins. Everyone's got a take. Everyone thinks they know what the right move is. But the only people who matter right now are the ones inside that Cleveland war room. And their decision, whichever way it goes, is going to echo long after the deadline passes. If they keep Sanders, they need to act like it. No more hesitation. No more waiting to see how things develop. They need to put their full weight behind him. Support, scheme, personnel, everything. If they don't believe in him, then yeah, take the money. Move on. But don't pretend it's about what's best for the player. That ship sails the moment you send him to the Jets. So what's it going to be? This isn't just about numbers. It's about identity. About whether the Browns finally have the nerve to build something from the ground up, or if they're still stuck in the cycle of chasing shortcuts. Let us know how you see it. Is Shedeur worth holding on to, even with the chaos around him? Or is the $200 million offer too good to pass up? Smash that like if you're watching this front office showdown unfold like a drama series. Hit the comments. Do you ride with Sanders or take the deal? And make sure you're subscribed, because whatever the Browns decide, the fallout is going to be loud, messy, and unforgettable. This story isn't over. Not even close.